Once again, ordinary Britons are being punished for daring to own a home. It's daylight robbery, dressed up as fairness.
So now the government wants to tax you simply for having a roof over your head. Have they completely lost the plot?
Breaking news for every UK homeowner. A sweeping property tax overhaul is on the table, and it could turn your biggest asset into a yearly bill you can't ignore. From £500,000 thresholds to a mansion-style charge and council tax revaluation, the rules of the game may change overnight. Who pays more, who gets squeezed, and how can you protect your savings? Stay with me as we unpack the proposals, winners, losers, and the smart moves to make now across Britain. Major new levy on homes over £500,000. The UK government's ongoing fiscal review has sparked alarm among homeowners as reports suggest a new property levy on homes valued above £500,000 may be introduced. Officials argue this measure could replace outdated council tax bans and align taxation with modern property values. The plan, under review by HM Treasury, could impact nearly 4.2 million properties nationwide, particularly across London, the South East and Manchester, where average home prices already exceed the proposed threshold. Critics warned that this levy could raise annual payments for middle-income families by as much as £1,200 per year, transforming what was once a one-time purchase burden into a continuous financial strain. The government is considering this policy to bridge the growing gap between regional property valuations and tax contributions. Many of the UK's council tax bans were last updated in 1991, meaning millions of homeowners currently pay less relative to their property's real market value. Economists at the Institute for Fiscal Studies argue that modernising the system could generate over £6 billion annually, helping fund healthcare and public infrastructure. However, housing experts warn that the abrupt rise could disproportionately affect those who are asset-rich but cash-poor, such as retirees living in long-owned family homes whose values have increased over decades. Reactions have been fierce across the property sector. Estate agents report growing anxiety among sellers, while advocacy groups warn of declining buyer confidence and a potential slowdown in market activity. Some analysts fear that this levy could push more investors to shift capital into overseas property markets. The Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors has already called for a phased implementation plan to avoid destabilizing local markets and to prevent middle-class families from being caught in the crossfire of fiscal reform aimed at the wealthy. Number 2. Annual mansion tax style charge on properties above £2 million. Another major point of concern is the proposed annual property charge, resembling a modern mansion tax targeting properties valued above £2 million. The idea has resurfaced in recent discussions at the Labour Party Conference 2025, with policymakers arguing that high-end homeowners should contribute more to public spending. Under the plan, owners of luxury homes could face an annual fee between 0.3% and 0.5% of property value, which could mean bills exceeding £10,000 a year for premium London properties. While the government defends the proposal as a fairness measure, critics describe it as a punitive step that risks damaging the already fragile, high-value housing market, especially in areas like Chelsea, Kensington, and Westminster. Real estate professionals and economists warn that such a tax could have unintended ripple effects across the broader market. Wealthy investors might begin liquidating assets or moving property holdings offshore, which would reduce demand for top-tier housing and lower market confidence. According to data from Savills UK, sales of luxury properties have already slowed by nearly 18% year-on-year amid growing uncertainty over taxation and regulation. The Centre for Policy Studies also cautions that this could lead to a decrease in foreign investment, a key driver behind London's property stability over the past decade. public opinion remains divided. Supporters see the tax as a necessary step toward wealth redistribution, particularly in times of national budget constraints. However, property experts emphasize the risk of equity erosion, where long-term homeowners could face mounting yearly charges without seeing any financial return. The National Association of Estate Agents has urged policymakers to introduce protective thresholds for inherited or owner-occupied properties to prevent a wave of forced sales and preserve stability across the housing ladder. Number 3. Replacement of stamp duty with a national property tax. One of the boldest proposals being examined by policymakers is the replacement of stamp duty land tax with a recurring national property tax applied annually. Currently, buyers pay stamp duty once at the time of purchase, but under the new model, all property owners would pay a yearly percentage based on their home's current market value. This approach, backed by several economists from the London School of Economics, aims to create a more balanced and consistent revenue stream for the government. However, this shift could dramatically alter home ownership dynamics, discouraging property investment and affecting first-time buyers who already struggle with affordability issues in an inflated housing market. Recent data from HM Revenue and Customs shows that stamp duty generated over £11 billion in 2024, making it one of the government's most reliable income sources. Replacing it with an annual property tax would require recalibration of local taxation systems, potentially merging with council tax frameworks. Experts estimate that an annual tax rate of 0.5% on property value could yield comparable revenue, but for homeowners, it translates into thousands of pounds in new yearly expenses. Those owning properties worth over £700,000 could face annual bills surpassing £3,500, a cost that could rise over time as property prices increase. Economists caution that this plan might lead to market stagnation, as existing owners could be reluctant to move, reducing property transactions and limiting housing mobility. The builders and developers also express concern that long-term uncertainty could deter investment in new housing projects. The Home Builders Federation has called for an extensive consultation process, emphasizing that such a tax reform must be gradual and transparent to avoid triggering an immediate decline in housing demand and investor confidence nationwide. Number 4. Reform of council tax through a new local property tax. The government is also reviewing a potential reform of the council tax system, replacing it with a modern local property tax that reflects current property values rather than outdated 1991 valuations. This adjustment, according to reports from the BBC and Financial Times, would significantly raise payments for millions of households in southern England while reducing them in areas where prices have remained stable or declined. The reform aims to address inequality in the tax system, where residents of high-value properties often pay similar council tax rates to those in far cheaper homes. Experts estimate that up to 60% of English households could see a noticeable change in their tax bills once the new assessment takes effect. Under the proposed structure, local authorities would gain greater flexibility to set tax rates based on regional housing markets and income demographics. Advocates argue that this would improve funding for community services such as education, waste management, and healthcare, which are currently under severe budget pressure. According to data from the Local Government Association, councils face an annual shortfall exceeding £4 billion, and a more equitable tax system could close that gap. However, the reform could also create new geographic tensions, as homeowners in prosperous regions like Surrey, Oxfordshire, and Cambridgeshire may experience the steepest tax hikes, sparking political backlash. Critics highlight the challenge of implementing such a large-scale reassessment fairly, With over 25 million homes in England, revaluing each property requires significant administrative resources and could take years to complete. Property analysts warned that uncertainty during this transition could temporarily depress local housing activity and increase regional price disparities. The Institute for Government recommends a phased rollout to allow markets and homeowners to adapt gradually to a tax model designed for modern Britain's complex property landscape. Number 5. Slowing housing market and buyer uncertainty amid tax reform rumours. The UK housing market has already shown signs of cooling, and the emergence of new tax reform rumours has only heightened buyer uncertainty. According to the Office for National Statistics, house prices fell by nearly 2.2% year-on-year as of September 2025, marking one of the steepest declines since the 2008 financial crisis. Analysts attribute this downturn to economic stagnation, higher borrowing costs, and growing anxiety over potential tax changes targeting homeowners. Many buyers are now adopting a wait-and-see approach, delaying purchases until the government clarifies its property tax stance, which in turn is slowing sales activity across the country. Estate agents report that listings are staying on the market significantly longer. A Rightmove report in October 2025 revealed that average selling times have increased from 47 days to 67 days, while demand among first-time buyers has dropped by almost 15% compared to last year. The fear that annual property taxes could replace or add to existing levies has discouraged new entrants from buying mid-range and high-value homes. This behavior, if sustained, could contribute to a self-reinforcing slowdown, where falling demand suppresses prices further and undermines overall market confidence. Economists from the Halifax Housing Index warned that if uncertainty continues into 2026, it could trigger a broader correction phase in property valuations. Regions that saw inflated growth during the pandemic, such as Bristol, Birmingham, and Greater London, are particularly vulnerable. Experts suggest that government communication will play a crucial role in stabilizing sentiment. Without a clear framework or transition plan, even speculative reports of new taxes could cause households to postpone moving decisions, leading to an extended period of volatility that would challenge both homeowners and the construction industry. Number 6. Rising house prices pulling more owners into new tax thresholds. One of the most pressing concerns surrounding the proposed reforms is the creeping effect of rising property prices, which could pull millions of additional homeowners into higher tax thresholds. Over the past decade, the average UK home value has surged by more than 62%, according to the nationwide House Price Index, meaning many ordinary family homes now fall into price brackets once reserved for luxury properties. If new levies are applied to homes above £500,000, thousands of households in cities such as London, Bristol, and Cambridge could suddenly face higher annual tax bills despite no change in their income or living standards. This phenomenon, known as fiscal drag, risks turning middle-class homeowners into unintended targets of policies designed for the wealthy. Data from the Office for Budget Responsibility suggests that around 1 in 5 UK homes could be affected by the new valuation bans if property inflation continues at its current pace. In London alone, over 58% of homes are now valued above £500,000, compared with just 22% in 2015. For many, this shift reflects not luxury ownership, but unavoidable regional price escalation. Critics argue that without income-based adjustments, the system could unfairly penalize homeowners who have benefited only on paper from rising property values. Older citizens and working families would be hit hardest, particularly those with fixed or modest incomes. Economists at the Institute for Fiscal Studies warned that a tax model ignoring local income disparities could deepen financial inequality across regions. The proposed property tax reforms, while aimed at fairness, may inadvertently widen the gap between areas of rapid growth and those lagging behind. This risk highlights the delicate balance policymakers must strike, modernizing taxation without turning property ownership into a financial liability for millions of ordinary Britons. Number 7. Impact on downsizing, moving home, and cash-poor, asset-rich owners. A major ripple effect of the proposed tax reforms is the potential impact on downsizing behavior and mobility within the housing market. Many older homeowners who might otherwise sell larger homes to move into smaller properties could now hesitate due to fear of triggering new or higher tax obligations. According to research from the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, nearly 38% of homeowners over age 60 have already delayed moving decisions because of financial uncertainty surrounding property levies. These individuals, often described as asset-rich but cash-poor, own valuable homes but rely on limited fixed incomes, making annual property payments especially burdensome. This could lead to stagnation at the upper end of the market and reduce the number of family-sized homes available to younger buyers. Such trends could have broader consequences for the housing ecosystem. When downsizing slows, supply chain mobility also suffers. Fewer homes are listed, construction demand falls, and first-time buyers find fewer opportunities. Economists warn that if the new tax structure discourages movement, it could further entrench the generational housing divide, already widened by inflation and stagnant wage growth. The UK Housing Federation has cautioned that an inflexible system may unintentionally lock older citizens into large, underutilised properties while intensifying shortages in mid-range family housing stock. Financial advisors are urging policymakers to explore deferment options or means-tested exemptions for retirees and low-income homeowners. Such measures could prevent forced sales and protect long-term stability across regions with high-value but low-liquid income populations. Without such relief mechanisms, even well-intentioned reforms risk punishing those least able to absorb extra costs. The debate now hinges on whether the government can design a balanced policy that preserves fairness while maintaining liquidity and dynamism across the UK property market. Number 8. Wealth-based tax shift targeting property owners instead of income. Another significant concern behind the new reform discussions is the shift from income-based taxation to wealth-based taxation, with property ownership becoming the central focus. Policymakers argue that as housing wealth has grown dramatically by nearly £3.5 trillion since 2010, according to ONS data, it's logical to tax assets rather than earnings. However, this shift could signal a major philosophical change in how wealth is redistributed in the UK. Homeowners, who already contribute through income, inheritance, and capital gains taxes, fear being targeted yet again through an additional recurring property levy. The government's message of taxing unearned wealth resonates politically, but critics argue it unfairly categorizes long-term homeowners as part of the wealthy elite, regardless of their actual income level. The Resolution Foundation has noted that over 60% of the UK's total wealth is now tied up in residential property, meaning that any such policy could affect the majority of middle-class citizens rather than just high-net-worth individuals. For example, a retired couple owning a modest home valued at £600,000 could face annual payments that represent a significant portion of their pension income. Meanwhile, high-income renters or those with offshore assets might escape much of the impact. This creates a paradox where wealth is measured by static assets rather than financial fluidity, intensifying debates about fairness and efficiency. Economists caution that an over-reliance on property-based taxation could erode public confidence and distort investment patterns. Those able to restructure their assets might pivot toward non-property wealth vehicles, reducing the tax base the government seeks to expand. The Taxpayers' Alliance has called for a balanced approach that safeguards productive investment while addressing inequality. Without clear differentiation between liquid and illiquid wealth, the policy risks punishing stability rather than encouraging long-term financial growth among responsible homeowners. Number 9. Regional inequality and disproportionate impact on high-value areas. One of the most debated aspects of the proposed property tax plan is its potential to widen regional inequality across the UK. Because property values vary drastically between regions, a uniform national tax rate would inevitably place heavier burdens on homeowners in London, the South East, and parts of the South West, where even modest homes exceed national averages. According to Zoopla's 2025 data, the average London property price stands near £680,000, compared with just £230,000 in the North East. This means a homeowner in Croydon could pay triple the tax of someone with a similar income in Newcastle, despite living a comparable lifestyle. Such disparities could inflame political tensions between wealthier southern regions and less affluent northern ones, undermining efforts to level up the national economy. Analysts from the Centre for Cities argue that the proposed changes could also distort migration and investment trends. Higher taxes in the south may encourage both individuals and businesses to relocate northward, potentially shifting job markets and local economies in unpredictable ways. While this could reduce regional house price gaps over time, the immediate effect may be economic turbulence, particularly in already stretched commuter towns like Reading, Guildford, and Watford. For local governments, sudden declines in property transaction volumes could reduce short-term revenue, contradicting the reform's fiscal goals. Furthermore, experts warn that such regional disparities could reshape the rental market. Landlords in high-tax zones might pass additional costs onto tenants, worsening affordability in already expensive cities. The Joseph Rowntree Foundation predicts that rent increases could outpace wage growth in these areas, eroding living standards and forcing more households into financial stress. Without carefully designed regional adjustments, the policy risks deepening the urban-rural divide and amplifying the sense of geographic unfairness already dividing Britain's housing economy. Number 10. Implementation risks, transitional unfairness, and homeowner backlash. Even if the proposed property tax reforms are approved, their implementation phase presents major risks that could trigger both economic disruption and public backlash. Reassessing millions of homes for updated valuations would require a vast administrative overhaul, something not attempted since 1991. The Valuation Office Agency, VOA, estimates that it would need several years and thousands of additional staff to complete a nationwide reassessment accurately. During this transition, homeowners could face confusion, incorrect tax bills, and appeals clogging the system. The Institute for Government warns that poorly managed transitions could spark serious credibility issues for the Treasury, especially if early tax demands appear inflated or inconsistent across similar properties. Politically, the rollout poses a significant challenge. With a general election expected within the next 2 years, no party wants to alienate millions of middle-class voters who form the backbone of homeownership in the UK. A sudden rise in annual costs, even if framed as fairness reform, could easily become an electoral flashpoint. Surveys conducted by YouGov in October 2025 show that over 68% of homeowners oppose any new recurring property taxes, with nearly half saying they would consider voting against whichever government introduces them. This level of opposition indicates how deeply property ownership is tied to public sentiment and economic identity in Britain. Finally, experts caution that if communication about the reform is not transparent, panic could spread across both domestic and international markets. Lenders may tighten mortgage criteria, developers may pause new projects, and foreign investors could withdraw capital. The Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors has urged the government to release clear timelines, relief options, and valuation methodologies before any rollout begins. Without these safeguards, the proposed tax plan risks creating the very instability it was intended to solve, shaking confidence in what has long been considered the safest store of wealth for British families. The unfolding debate over the UK's new property tax plan reveals more than just a policy shift. It exposes a fundamental question about fairness, ownership, and financial security in modern Britain. As the government seeks to rebalance its books, millions of families fear losing stability built over decades. What began as a proposal to target luxury estates now threatens to reshape how every homeowner views their property, not as a long-term investment, but as an annual liability. Economists warn that without regional balance and income sensitivity, this reform could widen inequality and stifle market growth at a time when confidence is already fragile. For now, the best move is awareness. Whether you're a first-time buyer, a landlord, or a retiree, stay alert to how these changes may affect your finances. The next few months could define the future of the housing market for an entire generation. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future updates on housing, economy, and tax policy. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think this reform makes Britain fairer or just more expensive to live in? Your opinion matters, and this debate is only just beginning.